watches from the sidelines as his father competes against a lineup of roaring stock cars. In the reflection of the rearview mirror, the shine of Dom's familiar necklace catches the light. When the car rolls into the pit lane, it becomes clear that the year is 1989, and we are introduced to Dom's father, Jack Toretto. Members of the crew voice their concerns about the dangerous conditions of the race, while Jacob works intensely beneath the hood, making last-minute adjustments. Dom remains nearby, doing whatever he can to support his father. Soon, Jack climbs back into his car and rejoins the race, unaware that something has gone terribly wrong. The competition is intense, filled with speed, skill, and tension. But suddenly, everything changes. Another driver collides with Jack's vehicle, sending it violently spinning before it flips through the air. Within seconds, the wreck bursts into flames. Dom runs toward the crash site in desperation, hoping to reach his father in time. Tragically, he arrives too late. Helpless, he can only watch as the fire consumes the wreckage and takes Jack's life. Years later, in the present day, Dom lives a quieter life with his young son, Brian. He spends his time teaching the boy about engines and cars, passing down the knowledge he once learned from his own father. Letty soon joins them, but their peaceful moment is interrupted when a car suddenly approaches their secluded home. Instinctively, Dom tells Brian to hide while he prepares himself in case the visitor is a threat. Instead of danger, Roman steps out of the vehicle and announces that the arrival is friendly. Moments later, Ramsay and Tej pull up as well. They explain that contacting Dom and Letty had been nearly impossible since neither of them uses a phone. The group then plays an urgent transmission sent by Mr. Nobody. According to the message, his plane was attacked during flight. Ramsay admits she hasn't fully decrypted the data yet, but the message was clearly directed only to their team. Letty asks why they would be contacted specifically, and the others reveal that Mr. Nobody had been transporting Cypher as a prisoner. However, the aircraft was ambushed mid-flight by unknown forces attempting to free her. The team believes the plane eventually crashed somewhere in Montecinto. Tej insists they need to investigate and possibly rescue Mr. Nobody, but Dom unexpectedly shuts down the idea. To everyone's surprise, especially Letty, he says that he and Letty have left that life behind. Roman argues that this mission could finally lead them to the person responsible for Alina's death, yet Dom refuses to change his mind. Tej then informs everyone that the group will depart at 8 the next morning, leaving the option open in case Dom and Letty reconsider. Later that night, Dom and Letty tuck Brian into bed. Before leaving the room, Letty removes her necklace and places it in Dom's hand, quietly saying goodbye as she prepares to join the others. She explains that their path is different from the life Brian and Mia now live. After she leaves, Dom sits alone and watches the transmission again. This time, he notices something important in the footage, a necklace that looks extremely familiar. Realizing what it might mean, he immediately changes his mind. Just before the plane departs, Dom arrives to join the rest of the crew. In Montecinto, Spain, the team ventures deep into a restricted zone where Mr. Nobody's aircraft is believed to have crashed. Ramsay warns everyone that they must act quickly because the area is heavily controlled by the military. When they finally locate the wreckage, there are no survivors in sight. Instead, they discover a strange piece of equipment that appears to be responsible for broadcasting the distress signal. Before they can examine it further, military forces suddenly ambush the team. During the chaos, Letty manages to conceal the mysterious device on her motorbike before everyone speeds away from the crash site. Roman becomes separated from the group and finds himself surrounded by dozens of soldiers, forcing him to fight them off on his own. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew manages to escape. Just when it seems like Roman might be left behind, he unexpectedly catches up with them. As they race across the terrain, the group approaches a dangerous minefield. Dom asks how fast they need to drive in order to avoid triggering the explosives. Tej quickly calculates that they must reach around 130 kilometers per hour. The vehicles accelerate through the hazardous area, while the pursuing military vehicles slow down and retreat. Mines begin exploding all around them, yet none of the blasts strike directly. From a distance, an unknown figure silently observes the chaos. Roman's truck, however, struggles to keep up with the required speed. When it hits a mine, the explosion ignites the vehicle. A second blast sends the truck flying through the air, ultimately wedging it tightly between two massive rocks. Tej attempts to help Roman, but he quickly realizes the truck is balanced directly on top of another armed mine. With incredible determination, Roman forces open the windshield and carefully climbs out. Despite the danger beneath him, he manages to escape without triggering the explosive. For a moment it appears the truck might crush him, but once again Roman survives by the narrowest margin. At the same time, Dom and Letty search desperately for an escape route. Suddenly, a group of armed attackers blocks their path. Dom manages to overpower one of them, but another vehicle crashes into Letty and knocks her off her motorcycle. Reacting instantly, Dom slides his car underneath her falling body, catching her before she hits the ground. Then the mysterious figure who had been watching earlier finally emerges from the trees and grabs the strange device. Dom and Letty immediately recognize him. The man standing before them is Jacob. Dom and Letty quickly pursue him as Jacob speeds toward a nearby cliff. Meanwhile, Tej and the others attempt to cross a narrow wooden bridge, but another vehicle slams into the structure and causes it to collapse. Even though it appears they might fall straight into the canyon below, they somehow manage to reach the opposite side. Military helicopters soon arrive and begin firing on both Dom and Jacob, but neither of them slows down. In a bold move, Jacob deliberately drives his car off the edge of the cliff. Just as the vehicle falls through the air, a plane swoops in and captures the car using a specialized hook. Under heavy gunfire, Dom approaches the broken bridge. With no other option available, he uses a dangling pillar to latch onto his car, swinging across the massive gap like a pendulum. The landing is rough, but Dom successfully makes it to the other side. The landing is harsh, but the team finally manages to lose the pursuing military forces. Later on, inside a transport aircraft, the group meets Stasiak, who explains that reports of a crashed spy plane inside a hostile nation are already creating political complications. He agrees to transport them wherever they need to go next, but he makes it clear he won't get involved in any operations beyond flying them there. As the crew discusses their next move, Ramsay reveals that she has managed to decrypt additional coordinates hidden within the encrypted file. Letty then turns to Dom and quietly asks whether he already knew Jacob would appear there. Tej, puzzled, asks the obvious question, who exactly is Jacob? Letty explains the truth. Jacob is Dom's brother. The revelation shocks everyone. None of them had ever heard Dom mention having a brother, especially not one capable of pulling off something as complex as what they just witnessed. As Roman continues rambling about the situation, Dom's mind drifts back to the past. He remembers the day of the accident and how differently Jacob reacted compared to him. While Dom was crushed by grief, Jacob seemed strangely calm, almost distant. A few days after their father's death, the Toretto family went to complete some legal paperwork. While Dom focused on signing documents, Jacob spotted Kenny, the racer whose collision had caused the fatal crash. Jacob walked up to him and told him to leave. Kenny immediately recognized the Toretto name and mocked him, calling him Jack Toretto's worthless kid. Anger began to build inside Jacob. He grabbed a wrench, intending to scare Kenny away. Kenny tried to smooth things over, but during his apology, he hinted that Jack had known his risky racing style would eventually get him killed. That comment pushed Jacob too far. Dom rushed over to intervene, but instead of calming the situation, Dom himself swung the wrench and struck Kenny. The altercation led to Dom being arrested. It's a moment that has lingered in Jacob's memory ever since. In the present day, Jacob meets with Otto, who congratulates him for successfully using the magnet system to recover the device from Mr. Nobody's crashed aircraft. Inside their secret facility, Cypher is being held inside a reinforced glass cell equipped with advanced technology. She compliments Jacob on his precision, pointing out how he managed to extract her without leaving so much as a scratch. Then she begins to subtly play with his emotions, suggesting that he has spent his entire life living in Dominic's shadow. Clearly uncomfortable with her attempts to manipulate him, Jacob quickly changes the subject. He reveals the disk he recovered and hands Cypher an old computer, ordering her to locate the second half of Project Ares. He warns her not to attempt hacking anything else beyond that task. Within seconds, Cypher manages to identify the location. She casually remarks that retrieving it should be easy, unless Dominic happens to interfere. Meanwhile, near the Caspian Sea, Dom and the rest of the crew infiltrate an abandoned military base. Dom admits he barely recognizes the person Jacob has become, and has no idea what his brother's ultimate goal might be. Despite that, he insists that confronting Jacob is something he must do on his own. The rest of the team immediately refuses that idea, reminding him that they have always faced every mission together and they aren't about to abandon him now. Later, while preparing for the mission, Roman jokingly starts theorizing that maybe they're actually indestructible. After all, they've survived countless missions and impossible situations without suffering any real injuries. Letty joins Dom as they prepare their weapons, and the two of them quietly admit that, in a strange way, they missed the adrenaline that came with their old life. Not long after, Tej announces that Mia has arrived. Letty had already informed her about Jacob's return. Dom warns Mia that getting involved again could put everything she has built at risk. But Mia reassures him that both her children and Dom's son are completely safe. Brian is watching over them, which is exactly why she wants to help this time. Ramsay then gathers everyone and presents information about Project Ares. She explains that Ares is an advanced system designed to control any network or device that operates on code. If the system connects to a satellite, whoever controls it could gain control over global weapon systems and effectively reshape the balance of power across the world within minutes. Understanding how dangerous such a tool could be, Mr. Nobody separated the prototype into two separate components, each requiring its own activation code. Since Jacob already possesses one half, the team's objective now is to locate the activation code before he does. Dom proposes splitting into separate groups if they want any chance of staying ahead of Jacob. Tej adds that Mr. Nobody's transmission also referenced a specific name connected to the code, someone linked to Han's supposed death. Letty and Mia immediately prepare to investigate. Just before they leave, Dom pulls Mia aside. He tells her that on the day Han died, he received a photograph from Mexico that strangely carried a Tokyo postmark, suggesting that something important had ended there. Mia asks what Dom plans to do about Jacob. Dom answers simply, he's going to find him. As Dom prepares for what lies ahead, another memory surfaces. He recalls his time in prison, where he worked in a repair shop alongside Santos and Leo, two men who eventually became his friends. One day they warned him about a crack in a fuel line. If air slipped inside, the engine would start choking. They explained that it was a common sabotage trick used in racing. If the crack widened even slightly, the entire car could explode. The explanation stuck with Dom, making him rethink what might have happened during his father's final race. After Dom was eventually released from prison, he attended an underground street race. The crowd cheered loudly for Jacob, who had become a skilled driver and was no longer overshadowed by his older brother. Dom hadn't expected to face him again so soon, but he challenged Jacob to a race. The stakes were simple. If Jacob won, he could come back home, but if he lost, he would have to leave and never return. Just before the race started, Dom confronted him with the truth. He revealed that he knew Jacob had tampered with their father's engine, because Jacob was the last person who had worked on the car that day. With the truth finally spoken, the two Toretto brothers lined up side by side at the starting line. A young woman stepped forward and dropped the flag, signaling the beginning of the race that would forever change both of their lives. Both brothers slam the nitrous buttons at the same moment, engines roaring as their cars surge forward. But Jacob fires his boost too soon. The sudden burst of power throws off his control, causing his car to fishtail. Dom seizes the opportunity, maintaining his line and racing ahead. He crosses the finish line first, claiming victory. Jacob, however, doesn't slow down. Instead, he keeps driving straight into the darkness, disappearing down the road without looking back. In the present day, Dom travels back to the old racetrack, hoping to find someone who might know where Jacob is now. The place looks almost frozen in time, the same cracked asphalt and weathered stands standing exactly as Dom remembers them. Buddy, however, has clearly grown